Hello, everyone, and welcome to Noctiluca. This is episode 1, and today we're interviewing Teresa Marques. How are you doing today,
Hel-
Teresa?
Hi, I'm doing great.
I'll just have you introduce yourself for the audience so they can get familiar with you.
Yeah, so my name is Teresa Marques, and I'm a Portuguese lady that lives in Sydney, in Australia. And yeah, I'm a spiritual seeker. I'm a Reiki therapist, I'm a meditation teacher, and I love all spiritual things.
What got you started in the Reiki, specifically?
So I was always into spirituality. I was always into reading self-help books, and I was obsessed with Indian gurus, and I was always into this theme. And it was something that was very alive in me. But someday I was in a very harsh situation. So I was unemployed. I was taking my driver's license with which was very expensive, and I had no money. So I was failing it and I had to pay even more money. I was living with my boyfriend and we had to go back to my to parents' house. So I went back to my hometown living in my parents' house because we were planning on coming to Australia already, but we had to save money, get new jobs. And so yeah, so it was very, very hard for me, very hard. So I was a bit depressed and I had this auntie which she had cancer, breast cancer. She suffered from breast cancer like 3 years before that time, and she came to my house and she was like, "Oh, you look so low, so depressed. It doesn't look like you." I'm doing this Reiki for years, and it helped me so much. It helped her with her cancer, actually, going through the chemotherapy, but also with the reduction of the tumor. Um, because that my auntie, she was working at a hospital for all her life. Like she was working there for 30 years in that hospital, so she knew all the doctors, she knew all the nurses. She was very into in her environment. She was just a secretary, but she knew all the stuff. And even doctors, kind of couple years later when she was okay, um she because chemotherapy was being very aggressive, but it was also not solving the problem. And they even tried a new treatment that was it was new, and she had access to it, and it did her really bad reaction, and and the doctors ended up giving her like 2 years of life. And then she was fine. She recovered. The tumor got smaller. She was able to operate, and she was fine. So the doctors, because they had this relationship with her, because she was in her work environment, they asked her what happened that they would give her only 2 years of life. That they felt like it was almost a miracle. And she said she was doing alternative medicines. She started doing Reiki, and it helped her a lot. So although she had no cancer anymore, she kept going to this Reiki therapy. And so she saw me so down that she took me there, and I was like, I had no idea what Reiki was. I've heard the word before at that time. This was like 8 years ago, 9 years ago now, probably. And and so she took me there, and I was a bit of like, oh my god, because I'm very optimistic, very like positive. Oh, things will get better. And sometimes you're in a hole, and because you're optimistic, you don't do much for yourself because you're waiting things to get better. And I thought, oh, when I got there, I felt bad because I saw a lot of like I realized there was a lot of people with cancer there because they had no hair. And I felt bad. I was like, oh my god, there's all these people here like with big diseases, and I'm just like a bit depressed. Like I was not paying much attention to pain. And so yeah, then it was my turn to do the healing. So this Reiki therapist was very popular. There was like a queue for him. And so I lay down and he had a little conversation with me, and why was I there, and I explained I was going through all these things. And then he just told me to lay down, and then I lay down and my session started, and I didn't know what to expect. And I was not very sensible to energy at that point because my meditation was very random. I didn't have the proper I was reading a lot about meditation, but I was not doing proper meditation yet. And I would do it once a month or every couple months, really, really, really rarely. I had a very was very conscious about energies. I knew a lot about energies. I was obsessed with energetic systems, how energies work and all of that, universal laws and the effects of meditation, but I was not actually doing it. So I couldn't put into words what I was feeling during the session. I was definitely feeling something. And then suddenly I just felt like I wanted to cry in the middle of the session. I started feeling a lot of pressure on my chest, and I was like holding not to cry. And some tears just dropped down my eyes, but I was holding it back instead of releasing. And then the therapist just said, just breathe in, just breathe in. And that helped me. I started breathing because I'm kind of a shy person. And I didn't want to cry in front of someone I didn't knew. I was feeling ashamed to be so emotional in front of someone. Although he was a therapist and he was very nice, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna cry here. I didn't even knew why I was crying. And then he was just like, just breathe in, and that helped me. And then, yeah, he kept the session and that was over. And then he asked me, did you felt anything on your throat? Oh no, in the middle of the session, he was like, oh my God, your throat chakra is really blocked. And he kept so he kind of like focused there. And then after the session, he was like, didn't you feel the pressure on your throat? And I was like, I kind of like, no, but because I was disconnected, and it happens with a lot of people when they go to their first session, and then when they kind of like get familiar with how energy feels, and they get familiar to focusing on their inner body, even meditation already helps that. Now I can feel like that. I put my hands and I feel immediately the vibration of Reiki on me, and I recognize it immediately. But at that point, I didn't have that. And so no. And then he was like, do you usually feel like you gag when you talk, or when you're swallowing? Do you feel like you have a big, like, and I at the moment, I was like, no, I didn't pay much attention. But when I thought later, I was like, yeah, actually, I think I have. And then saying this, you can never expect a Reiki therapist to tell you, oh, you have a blockage in this chakra, or you have a block that therapist in particular, like, because there's a lot of Reiki therapists that have psychic power. So he had a psychic power. Also, he went to Reiki because of that psychic power. He then told me a bit of his story also. So he went to Reiki and started helping people, and because he had a calling and a mission that he was not following. He didn't want to believe that he has in his dreams, in his intuitions, until he started getting really, really sick because he was not following his mission. And then he embraced it. When he started embrace it and went to Reiki and developed and accepted his gift, then his life changes and his sickness disappeared like that. And like a lot of people that have spiritual diseases, he went to the doctor. No one knew what he had. So he had this amazing story also behind. So he had this extra ability that you can never expect in every Reiki therapist. I went to other Reiki therapists here in Sydney before I was attuned, and I always told that story, and it was like they always like made sure to make me realize, oh, don't expect me to feel those things or to give you that kind of diagnosis. But yeah, that moment kind of changed my life, because then I went home. I went back home, and yeah, I felt something, but I didn't felt much. I didn't felt much. I felt emotional, but I went home and I was kind of natural. So we had dinner, and then a couple hours later, the session, I just started crying. I started reading about chakras because I had heard of them also, but I didn't knew much about it. And so I started Googling chakras, throat chakra, what it means. I was obsessed with the throat chakra, and it started my journey into the chakra system, because although I was into energies, I didn't develop much into the chakra system itself. So I started reading throat chakra, understanding and thinking, trying to relate with what was had happened to me. And then I started crying. I had this catharsis. I had a big catharsis. Now I know that it was a catharsis. and I've cried for almost 4 hours. So my husband was around me, just panicking, like, why are you crying? I couldn't say why I was crying. I was just releasing. I was crying, like tears drowning out on my face. And I kept reading. And I felt this feeling of like, I just felt like crying and I couldn't explain why. And my husband was like, so you went there, it was meant to help you, and now it seems like you're worse, you're crying.
Mm.
And then yeah, that happened, and I was just reading, and then I went to sleep, and the next day I felt so relieved. I think it was a couple days later. I think it took me 2 days to really understand what that one session had done for me. I was
Yeah.
feeling lighter. I remember just sitting on the couch and feeling good with myself. And I didn't remember feeling like that for a long time. I was just sitting there and I was feeling in peace, like in good in my skin. And I was trying to find a job. I was jobless. And you know when you're not in balance, kind of like unconsciously, we all feel each other's energy. And so I had some success blockage in me that just broke down that day. In a couple of weeks, I found a job. And after a month, I went to this, it was a retail job because I was a retail worker. I was into journalism, that was my degree, but you cannot leave from journalism in Portugal. It's very hard. So I always had this extra job in retail, and I had none at the moment. So I was just going through to the retail because it would be the easiest. And but it was hard because unemployment is really hard in Portugal. The reality there, it's completely different from Sydney here. Like here, you can find a retail job very easily at any point. And yeah, so I was struggling, and I just like was so okay with myself that somehow people felt that and they gave me a job. And then I had this passion with this store that was very design, very fashion, and I was always go to the showcase and just like look at those shoes, enter, and feel like this store is amazing. And yeah, a month later, that store was asking for someone for they were offering a job for salesperson, and I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. So the manager on the other store, she liked me so much, but I told her I really love that store, and it was in the same mall, and I really wanted to apply for that job, and I applied, and I went to the interview, and then I got it, and I had to say that I was leaving for the other store. What happened was I loved that store so much that that store was, when I started working there, they were thinking of closing because it was a very niche store. It was a very like different design, more like fashion, high fashion kind of design. And you like in my hometown, everyone's kind of conservative, so it was tough to sell those kind of shoes to the public in my hometown. And so they were struggling. I found out they were struggling. They had no manager at the moment because so there was a manager coming from another store to that store, um, and the team was kind of like dismotivated. And I came there with my bright light. I was so happy. I loved the brand. I didn't absorb any of that negativity, and I feel like it was the Reiki, like that balance that Reiki gave me that made me bring the light to others. And the thing is, the store started selling. They started seeing my name on all these sales. Even I helped my colleagues because they would struggle. I would see them losing a sale, and I would interfere with my passion, and because I knew they could say this about that shoe, they could say that they are not doing it, and I would interfere. And it was not in a competitive way because they would be like, oh, put it in your name, and I was like, no, I interfere, but it's in your name, the sale. I just help you. And it created this bond. We just started being a really strong team, and they started selling better also, and the store started selling a lot. So in 3 months I had the management job itself. I was a store manager for the first time in this amazing boutique, beautiful store. I And when we do something, when we connect with who we are when we clean our energy and we clear all these blockages, what is for us will come. And sometimes we are living for years with blockages because the catharsis that I had, what was that? There was all this pain, all these emotions I didn't deal with, because sometimes being too optimistic can also go that way. You can deny your struggles, and you kind of like suck them down, and then they are in your system, and you're not being kind to yourself. You're just like, it's a way of you like pushing yourself to move forward and not be kind with the pain you're going through, so that it it dissolves in its natural way, and then you move on and not deny like your pain or your insecurities, or and I've learned that through the years also, that happened to me because of that. And it was life changing. I could never, the word Reiki, since that one session became my everyday, it was part of my everyday life. I started reading about Reiki. And I had the goal to do the Reiki attunement at that point. But then in Portugal, I kind of struggled to do it. So I came to Australia, to Sydney, 2 years after. I think I was in that store 2 years. They ended up opening another store. So it was very, 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 it just opened doors for me. And I knew it was my energy that was so good, that opened the universe. The universe is always saying yes to you. And if you're in a shitty situation and you have blockages and you have a negative thought, and you're thinking about scarcity, that's what universe will bring you back. I think everyone at this point have heard of this. But when you treat of your energy, when you take care of your energy, and you do proper cleanses, because I think a lot of people don't realize the power of not working on thought, because I think everyone at this point is just working on their thought, and there's a lot of spiritual information at this point. You have a lot of there's a load of people talking about spirituality, meditation, and being positive, and all those things. But I think people need to do what I've done, what I start doing, which is actually going to do some Reiki on themselves, do some meditation, do something to heal their energy, because that's the only way they will realize the impact. Because when it's in your energy, you can put all the positive thought, and that's how it starts, because your thoughts become your emotions, and your emotions your action, and then you create your own reality. So it starts in thought. But if you have a block, the energy that you're receiving, your prana, the energy you receive from the universe, that it's coming to you, and you have blockages because you sometimes, even thinking too much, the energy stays in your head, doesn't go down, your chakras get disenergized, and you start feeling depressed, low energy. And when you clean this, and the energy from the universe, the prana that you need to be able to be the best of yourself, starts running in you. When you do some kind of energetic healing, you start seeing and realizing, I think it's easier for people to engage. And I think that's what's happening at this point. There's a lot of people starting to do these things because they feel depressed, they don't know why, they have issues, they don't know why, and then they sometimes only for curiosity. There's a lot of people that starts like this, always as my story, as myself. They have someone that is already doing it and bring them to this world. And yeah, that's how I became obsessed with Reiki, and how Reiki, that one session, changed my life, until I came to Sydney, did my first attunement, start doing it every single day. And I was already meditating at that point every day, and it just increased me. It grew at some point that I started to not wanting to work in retail anymore, starting to focus back on my dreams. I studied journalism, and I wanted to be a writer. And it's a mistake a lot of people does, going to journalism thinking that they were going to be, it's not the same. And with Reiki, I just, this last year, since I started doing Reiki, I felt the urge to write again. I was not writing anything for almost, I don't know, probably, I finished my degree in 2012, and then I had a few jobs in journalism. For 7 years, I was not writing anything, and I felt the urge to write something. I didn't know what, and then I had this instinct of writing about spirituality, and I started writing a book, and I have a book already, almost ready, called The Spiritual Mother, where I speak about these journeys, that story of Reiki. It's in that book, and my spiritual journey with Reiki. I ended up doing some past life regressions that were open my conscious a lot too, and just putting into words my own experience into this spiritual world, the energy world, the Reiki world. And because we are spiritual and energetic beings, and as soon as we accept and embrace that, the better it will be for us, all of us.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful story. Um, I feel as if it really takes time for people to find their place in life. Um, you
Yeah.
know, and some people never really find their true way. And I feel like that's okay. It's not to shame anybody that struggles with their path, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just the beauty and the magnificence of being able to find your path is something that you can't really trade for the world. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yes, I
so
think. Hmm. I definitely agree with you, Nazar, because I think we are all kind of like lost interiorly. Like we kind of like all trying to figure out who we really are. And some people just put layers on top of that because they focus on distractions. And and I think that's what the pandemic kind spiritually came to do. They put us on our home to us to confront with ourselves and try to figure out who we really are. Are the jobs that we are doing really representing who we are? Are the family lives that we are doing really representing the best of us? When are we really bonding with our children? Are we really prioritizing? Are our priorities um, uh, balance? Are we giving too much importance to things that we should not give as much power and importance, and we should refocus on other things? And who are we? What are our dreams? I think that's why a lot of people struggle with the quarantines, because they were used to be distracted of themselves, and when they got um, uh, obligated to stay at home, there was all this stuff popping out, like a catharsis, like I did in Reiki. But people who doesn't have these tools and doesn't have this self knowledge seeking, they struggled more for sure. I think like I'm being spiritual, being a meditator, and having Reiki. To me, the quarantines, the coronavirus, although it's said that a lot of people are dying, there's a lot of things happening, but I believe the universe is perfect and change needs to be done. And there was a lot of change um, in course because a lot of things were exposed with the virus. And I think these people that are dying are all little angels. They came here to show us, to give us this opportunity to learn, and to put some fragilize our hearts. And because human beings, it seems, they only pay attention when there's death and when there's disgrace. That's when they start waking up for things and paying attention to some things, unfortunately. But my personal journey in the quarantine was okay. It was an inner self journey of discover of um, this spiritual world is really, it really increased. That's why we're talking now, Nazar, because I started developing my work as a therapist, launching my business, my Instagram account, and focusing on this and thinking this is really big. This is getting really big in me. I cannot like hide it anymore. I feel like talking about these things
no,
every
yeah,
day. I feel like, and at my work, I cannot talk with anyone. That's why I was so happy to do this podcast with you, and I'm so happy to bond and with other communities that are spiritual, because I think it's now increasing these kind of things. But I used to feel awkward. I used to feel I couldn't talk what I think about things because I have my energetic vision on things that happen in the world and the universe. And everyone that is spiritual, they have different visions of people that are very still too much in this material world and not doing some kind of like connecting, believing there's something higher and everything has a purpose, even if we don't understand what it is. But our own purpose, I think that's our job here to find. What's our mission? What moves us? What's our fire? Why are we depressed? Why certain things? It's spirituality. It's all about doing that, what you were saying, like we don't kind of like know sometimes our path, and it's okay. And sometimes we take years figure it out, but we have to start seeking. There's knowledge to the this is the main thing we came to do
Yeah,
in this
it's
life.
about
It's
choosing
not to
healing.
yes, and
Choosing healing for sure.
we have to heal ourselves, because if we incarnated, it's because we have things to heal, emotions to heal. I think the journey on earth, it's an emotional journey. We came here to, this is the emotional healing school. We came here to deal with lower emotions. We are dual. We have our shadow side, our darkness, and we have our light side, and we have to learn how to live with both, but always choosing the light side. So to choose the light side, sometimes it means you have to know your dark side. And it can be scary. And you don't want to be like that. And you kind of block it. And you pretend it's not there. That there are voices, negative voices that are controlling you. And because you don't want to meet them, because they are scary and they say things you don't want to be, because we have society demanding we are certain ways. And seeking light is also knowing the shadow side. And that's why it's a lot of people, when they start meditating, they get confronted with their shadow side and they get scared and they don't want, they, because they, we all talk, oh, meditation is amazing, and you go up there and there's guides and there's light and and you levitate, feel like you're levitating, and you have like this, and that happens. But first, in the beginning, you will be confronted with your shadow side, the excess of thought that you have to learn how to control. Like, you have to choose to focus on a little voice that is inside you, that it's very, very subtle, which is your soul, that it's underneath all those layers of ego. And ego is very connected with the emotions we came to heal. Those voices, they are voices. The ego never says that you're amazing at something. It always makes you run faster. You're never good enough. You're never pretty. You're never deserving. You are never capable. If you failed on something, you're weak, and you know, all those voices we have to be confronted, and we all have them. And it's okay. We need to kind of like accept them, but take the power out of them. And yeah, so I think we are all kind of like just wanting to figure out who we are. There's this master, one of my teachers, spiritual teachers, she always says, we have to know our energy history. And that's when we truly know ourselves. There's a journey to be made to know our energy history. Like, for example, I've been understanding more of my astrological map, and I was amazed. I never paid too much attention, but I have a niece that it's into it, and she knows a lot about like, and she kind of like she had tarot cards, and she was reading tarot cards to me, and she spoke about my she went to see my astrological map, and she told me some things. And then I had my spiritual teacher, she speaks a lot about energetic things and everything, but she's an astrologer, and she started also saying other things, and I started like bonding things, and I started just reading. You can do that yourself. You can check there's free charts for everyone to just need to go to know the hour. And I understood my energy in ways that I couldn't understand. Like, for example, you have this it's not a planet, it's the Chiron, and it's like the womb of your soul, and the house where it is in your map, and the planet that it is. And I started reading mine, and it had everything to do with me, and I was like, oh my god. And then I went to read about the meanings of the houses and the planets, and I saw myself in those. I understood my energy, and it helped me. So it's a self-knowledge tool that you can do. There's a lot of tools out there that we can use to start realizing, understanding our energy. The past life regression, it was amazing. It was life-changing for me, because I just did it for fun once also, And I was not much into focusing on whatever happened in my past lives. I was like, well, I have this one to deal with. Why should I focus on whatever I was? I'm not that person anymore. Until I realized it influences a lot. There's a lot of like things you're doing now because it's not your essence in this life. You're just dragging that life because you're incarnated, because you had unsolved business, unsolved emotions from past lives. Those unsolved emotions are still in you. There are patterns that you repeat. That's what karma is all about, right? We have a lot of memory in us that we have not conscious. It comes from a past life. So we act on this unconscious memory that is in ourselves, not knowing it's not us. It's that past life that it's acting on us. And we have to take that energy out of us so that we are who we came to be as more and more in this life, to be truly abundant. And there's a lot of doors that sometimes when we have patterns that, oh, you always struggle with your job, you always struggle in your relationship, there's always the pattern like, oh, it's always hard for you to have a good relationship. Believe me, that's a karma. Oh, you always have trouble with your career and your bosses, and you always treated in some way. Believe me, that's karma. Karma is a pain you didn't dissolve, you didn't dealt with in another life. That's why it's so important to be fragile. And even if you don't know it's a past life or whatever, if you have pains, if you have patterns that are happening to you, if you have blockages in your life, start realizing, why did this happen to me? And even like, why was I born in this family? Why did I have an alcoholic father? Why did I had a family that suffers from obesity? Why did I have a sister that mistreated me since I was a young age? Why did I have an abusive husband? Those, if you are spiritual and you know the universe is perfect, why the hell you are in those situations? You attract everything that it is for you, right? I'm pretty sure you didn't want to attract an abusive husband or an abusive boss or a disease, or so. Why aren't you making the questions like, why does this happen to me? If it's meant to be for me, why? What is the lesson that I have to learn? What is in my energy that's making me attract this? I don't want this shit for me. Sorry about the I don't want this stuff for me. That's not what I want. And that's when you have to surrender. And that's why sometimes life gets so hard. It's not that life is hard. It's just the universe wants you to surrender, to fragilize, to look inside you, to just like, okay, lose control a bit and think, okay, I'm in a bad situation. I don't want this for myself. What am I missing? What do I need to learn? Why is these things still happen to me? And I think that's how spiritual people start going to chasing spiritual knowledge. That's why a lot of people need a divorce, a disease, to then open up for spirituality, because life, the universe brings us signs, very subtle signs all the time. Even Oprah Winfrey, I love Oprah Winfrey. And she's very spiritual, and she always says that what she wants is to learn to listen to the universe whisper before it comes an aggressive situation. So because she grasped that knowledge, she realized during her own experience. She's very, very wise woman, and she realized in her life experiences that there were signs everywhere, and there were voices telling her what to do, the right thing to do, like her gut. And she didn't connect when she didn't connect with it. She went through worse situations, and she knew that voice was there before. So she always say, we have to pay attention to our whispers, because they are there to lead us. And that's the connection with your higher self, with your intuition. When you do spiritual work, energetic work, you clean the layers that are not making you listen to those intuitions, your friend. And when you do spiritual work, you just believe there's something higher, and you just ask them for help and to guide you. And they are there anxiously waiting to help you. Anxiously. There's a lot of light beings, there's a lot of light guides. You have half of the sky up there wanting to help you. They just need you to surrender and ask them to help. They cannot interfere until you surrender and ask them to help, and they will help you. and they will help you in ways you have no idea until you surrender.
Now, I'm completely in agreement with you. Surrender is a very important concept, but I guess for me, um, I had a little bit of a different experience. I led myself down a path where my ego ended up being the one thing that I needed. And I think it's important
What
to touch on those aspects where spirituality can kind of change on a whim, because
what
when everything is a tool, when everything is like a tool in a sense, like you have to use those different tools to get you to different places. And like it's interesting the dynamic between like somebody who sees like the ego as like a destructive thing, and then somebody who sees the ego as like a constructive thing. So I think that dynamic is just very interesting because it changes from person to person. I've noticed that throughout different conversations with people. But I also feel like um all of that was an interesting story for me to hear, because I was able to relate to it in the sense of like my experience has not been the prettiest of experiences either. And when you were talking about karma, it really got to me because people don't realize the importance of clearing that karma from their space. And
Yes, definitely. And I think
yeah,
there's a lot of misunderstanding about what karma really is. And when they understand what karma is, because sometimes we are running away out of this, they call my teacher, my spiritual teacher, my main spiritual teacher, which was the person I learned the most about karma. And I believe there's not much conversation. Indians talk about karma a bit, and they talk already about the memory that karma represents. But I think in our society we have this idea that karma is something that it's bad, and it's something that you carry for the rest of your life, and it's something in that it's like you have to say, oh, I have a bad husband, this is my karma, and you have to stay there. Oh, I have a lack of money, I'm always like, and you have to stay in that situation. And karma is for us to heal. It's what our soul proposed itself to come in this lifetime to heal. It's our spiritual proposition, and it's connected with a pain that we didn't deal. So whenever we fragilize and connect with our pains, even if you don't know what your karma is in specific, but you connect with your patterns, because your outside world, it's always a reflection of your inner world. So if your life outside is not good, it's because there's something in your energy that it's not good. So you just surrendering, like we were saying, and you just connect with your pains. And crying is very important, but it's the therapy crying, not the crying of victim being a victim. And that's why spiritual work, it's so important, because if you believe the universe, it's perfect. If you are in a bad situation and if you cry because you have something in you that, even if you don't know why, it's making you stay in a bad situation, you just fragilize with that situation and feel the pain. And because let's imagine, like if you bring a karma always starts with you in another life abusing of something, and then you have to balance that abuse. It's all about balancing energies. So when you abuse an energy, you have to come in another life in loss. What happens to balance that energy, for you to learn how to balance? So you have to kind of come leave what you did to other people. It doesn't mean you have to be in that loss. It means you have to fragilize, because you have to connect with the pain you made someone else feel in another life. So if you can, as soon and easier that you connect with that pain and you cry, you kind of like are crying for the people that you may have hurt in a past life. Now, it seems a bit unfair, because you're in this life, you don't remember your past life, you don't remember abusing no one or being bad with no one or doing bad things. And so we kind of like tend to victimize because we don't do spiritual work, we don't have spiritual knowledge, and we just victimize, we complain, and that doesn't heal. That just make you dig the hole a bit harder. And what happens also, that's why I think it's so interesting starting to study past life regressions, because in past life regressions, people connect with their past lives. And there's Brian Weiss, the master of past life regression. And he had the experience of people going to their past lives and healing diseases, healing situations, and understanding why they were in a particular situation at that point. Like, for example, his daughter. So this is very connected with fears. So usually the karma is connected with an abuse, and then you come in a loss. So imagine you abused, you were a very rich man in one life and you were abusive. You mistreated your staff on whatever business you had, or you were bad to people and you were very lonely. And in this next life, you come as powerless. You come to a poor family because you need to feel not having the power of having money. But you have the memory in yourself that you are very powerful and very rich. So instead of fragilizing with your powerless situation and just dealing with the situation in a way that you're vulnerable and trying to build something out of there, we just focus on, we all want to be rich, and we get sad because we are not rich, and then we call, and we kind of like repeat the pattern of that. If we focus on getting rich, there's a lot of people that actually are able to get rich again, and what happens is that they will abuse again because they didn't fragilize, they didn't accept what the universe was proposing, that it was to balance. So they need to fragilize to clean that energy, and until they clean, they will always come in abuse, in lost lives. For example, there are people that have very big troubles with relationships. They always have the fear of surrendering to someone, to a partner, or they always come from a needy place. They attract all these awkward partners that don't treat them as they should, as they feel they deserve to. And there's some people that don't even want to enter a relationship. Imagine in a past life, that's karmic in relationships, karma in relationships. Imagine in a past life you had a partner and you were going to marry and you were super in love, and then when the day of your marriage, he left you at the altar and you were humiliated in front of all these people that were there for your marriage, and you felt abandoned for the rest of your life because he broke your heart. So in this lifetime, when you come near a relationship, you have this unconscious fear in you. There's a memory of the pain of that past life of yours who was abandoned. It's in you because she didn't process that she could be happier with someone else, that she could be whole, that she had to love herself before she could love, and accept that someone else can get in love with someone. So all that regret that she fed in her last life, what she associated, the pain she associated to loving someone because she would be abandoned. In this lifetime, whenever that person has a part, first of all, they always try not to have, they are difficult people. Those kind of people feel difficult to give themselves to someone, and they kind of avoid entering relationships. And when they are actually in a relationship, whenever the partner goes to the cinema with friends or have a drink, that persona from the past lives gets alive, gets activated. They are afraid. Somehow they get jealous. They get this fear in their chest, and they don't know why they have that. They think it's just because. And so when their partner come, they discuss. She get jealous, possessive, needy, and she doesn't know she's doing that because she has the pain of that lady that was actually abandoned in a past life, and now it's living through all that again. So what we need to do is to fragilize whenever we feel like that, like, okay, when we have spiritual work and we know when we go through a situation, okay, I'm feeling this, but I trust my partner. So why is this in me? I have to clean this. This is not mine. This is probably from a past life. And this is a whole process of self-knowledge. Maybe this is a bit too confusing for you. I always recommend people to, I was talking about Brian Weiss, because he's very, very, very respected in this area, because he studied in university to be psychanalyst. And when he started his life, working life after his academic life, and when his first book is about that client that changed his vision, because that's what not he started realizing people were going to a past that client was going to a past life, and then he saw it over and over again, and then he had this experience where that client that visited past life, he also went to these in-between lives in the upstairs in the sky, in the divine realm. And she connected with people from Brian Weiss's family that was dead, and also with situations that had happened to him and his wife, and they never spoke about it with no one. No one could have known about those things. They were very intimate. And he knew, I think it was a miscarriage his wife had, and the spirit of this baby that didn't end up being born, it was there. And that lady, she had kind of like psychic gift to be able to connect this way in the hypnosis. And so he was amazed. He knew that was impossible. She couldn't have read it about it anywhere. That was very, very intimate. So how can you explain these things? And then he started breaking down and all what he had learned in his academic life, and questioning and seeing how people, after they connect with their past lives, they would heal the problems that at the first point brought those people to Brian Weiss, to his treatment. They would heal themselves after connecting with those past lives. And so he had to write a book about it, and he started doing this work and defending that past lives are in our life at this moment, and we reincarnate, and we had more lives before this one. Probably we will have more after this one, and there are lessons to be learned. So yeah, there's a lot of examples, and I think people still like, oh, I don't believe it. Yeah, but have you studied? Have you read about it? It's kind of like not believing in something you have know nothing about it. It's a bit like closing yourself to I don't want to say being ignorant, because ignorant is not like, I don't want to say ignorant in a way of prejudice way. It's like you just don't know something. Like, I'm ignorant some things, and I think people just shut them down before they even get the proper knowledge. And there's a lot of things they have to self-discover out there, and I think there's a lot of people giving themselves the opportunity, thankfully, at this point. And there are a lot of people realizing there's a whole universe, a whole journey to be made. And I think there's a lot of development starting to happen in this area, which I think it's great. That's why I want to be a part of the people that it's helping to just spread this knowledge. And yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really important to be able to be a person in the world today that passes on knowledge. I mean, we're the ones writing our own history. And, it's only going to be carried on by our future generations. So, we're a crucial part of human history, whether we realize it or not. And,
Yeah.
I just feel like
And
it's time for people to become aware of that. And that's the beauty of Reiki itself, is being able to be a part of that process. So
yes, definitely, because we have, our society created a lifestyle that it's very it's not very friendly of our energy. We eat stuff we shouldn't eat. We drink stuff we shouldn't drink. We push ourselves to limits that we shouldn't push. We stress is a major thing in our lives. And this is all about being spiritual. Choosing light is also, it's not all about like just doing spiritual work. Being spiritual is choosing always what's best for you, the best food for you, the best environment for you. Relate yourself with the best people for you, that the people that makes you feel good. Choose the job that will represent who you are, who you want to be, where you have to bring to the table, that it's connected with your talents, with your dreams, with your creativity. Instead of, this society is all about chasing jobs for status, for money, so you just shrink your own energy, whatever you came to be, in the name of a job that will satisfy an ego, and it's not meant to be for you, and you just live a miserable life and you don't know why. And things need to change, because it's out there. Depression is one of the main um, diseases in the world, and depression is just you disconnected with your soul. That's it. And depression is very curable. Like, Reiki has amazing results with depression. And because science cannot prove things because they don't know how it works, but if it works, we should pay attention to them. Why the hell we have to wait for science to explain all of it? Science once thought that the earth was not round. Science once thought bacteria didn't exist. Science once believed that we didn't have an aura, and now they are measurable. Energy is measurable. There's machines able to observe that when two people are together, their auras exchange energy, and all of this is it was once denied by science. And so why do we need to wait for science? I love that science is also developing all these things that will it help us spiritual people um, to kind of like give some proof for whoever needs the proof. But when you're doing Reiki, you feel the energy. It's very real. Most people feel it, and in the first session, some people feel it in a second session. When you do the Reiki attunement, you immediately feel it. And when you do the second level, you increase your flow a lot with the symbols, and you feel it. It's real. It's not something that science can make me deny. And I know what it's done for me. And it becomes very real if you give the opportunity to come into your life. And so yeah, I think we all need to do some kind of healing, some kind of energetic work, because we are energetic beings. It's not like, oh, I don't believe in energies, oh, I believe in energies. I think there's a lot of people at this point that already believe in energies. I think what it's missing at this point is just that little step to try to be open and to realize this is very, very important. This is probably one of the most important they should be doing for themselves. And we are instead focusing a lot on just our daily worries, like getting a good job, paying the bills, buying a house, being, and there's all this spiritual like world inside you, who you really are, who is your spirit, connecting with your emotions, with your feelings, with your pains, with your patterns, with what you attract to yourself, to what are your triggers, why certain things trigger you, and work on that and pay attention, put consciousness into that. A book that I always like to refer also, I don't know if you've ever read it, Nazar. If you didn't, I truly recommend to everyone. It's a book that I read like 5 times, and I always go back to read it once in a while. And every time I read it, it's eye-opening, and it's very popular. And it's The Power of Now of Eckhart Tolle. I think that book just explains a lot of how this energetic world works. Because Eckhart Tolle, the book starts with Eckhart Tolle is in a room feeling very depressed. He had suicidal thoughts, and he was suffering from depression all his life, and he was struggling to find joy in his daily life. and he had this event in that room where there he felt this how do you say, he felt like this spiral of light. First he realized, he had the conversation with himself where he was like, I cannot deal with myself anymore. I think it was actually like this. He was suffering so much, he just wanted not to live like that anymore, and he was like, I cannot live with myself anymore. And then he, something inside him made him think, I cannot live with myself. So if I'm the one saying I cannot live with myself, who is this person that is observing that self that it cannot live with? And that made him like, kind of, it was a little bit of epiphany, like a little enlightenment that he had. So he was so at the bottom that he kind of surrendered. So he was so at the bottom in this pain, he surrendered completely. And this vortex of light, he felt this vortex of light entering in him, and he got scared. What he was he feeling? And then he heard this voice saying, just release, don't be afraid. And then he said he was very afraid, and then the fear stopped, and he just opened up, and he doesn't remember what happened next. He just woke up in next morning, and he said he started seeing the light coming into his room. He started observing his room, and he felt, although it was the same room, he had never actually seen the room. He felt completely different. He felt joy, and he felt how beautiful the sunlight was touching whatever objects he had in the room. And this was the beginning of his journey. And then he said he was just amazed for 6 months. He was just amazed of how he started seeing the world, because that moment was when he realized the voice that was pushing him down, the voice that was saying pushing him into that pain. And he got to the pain, because whatever it goes to its extreme, there's a law, a physical law that says whatever it I don't know exactly how it is, but whatever gets to its extreme, it will go back to the opposite. And that's what happened to him. He was into such an extreme painful moment that he just like transformed that in the opposite immediately, and he opened kind of a gate for all this light to come into and heal his depression, and he just changed his vision of the world. And then his book is a journey, because he became aware how our energies work, how we observe from others. Sometimes you enter a place, you observe the energy of someone else that was fighting in that room, and you get into the room and you feel weird, and you don't know why, because there was a fight there before, and you kind of like feel nervous, and you don't know why. When you start being very sensible to energies, you start feeling getting sensible to these different tones of energy in environments you get into, people you relate to. You stop not wanting to see violent stuff because it touches you so much. You don't want, you cannot see it, because your energy is so much lighter and subtle that whatever it's dense and violent, you don't connect with, and you don't want to be there. And yeah. So the power of now, Eckhart Tolle, I think it's a Bible that everyone should have in their room to read and reread until they understand a little bit better how this energy work, and how these voices that we have in our head are not ours. Because that's what you were saying before, Nazar. Ego is a tool. If we see ego as a tool and we are the masters, we're fine, because ego will never disappear. It's part of our human nature. So whoever wants to dissolve the ego forever, even there's some spiritual people like the ego is the devil and we want to make it disappear, it will never disappear. It will always be. But you have to become the master. And as a tool for you do your survival things that you need to do, because we all need to eat. And that's one of the challenges of this life. Working, getting money, eating, that's one of the challenges. And we make it one of the biggest challenges that we have. And it's not. We have to focus a lot on our inner challenge, our emotional challenge, our how we relate with ourselves, how we relate to the world, how we relate with the divine. And yeah, so it's not a problem having an ego. The problem and is when the ego is the master, and that's a work in progress we have to do.
Yeah, I've heard about that book, and Eckhart is a favorite author amongst many spiritualists. But
You should.
what I was curious about was how you think the practice of Reiki and healing comes into your worldview.
A lot. It gave me a basis. Like for example, my meditation got deeper, and I could reach higher states of energy frequency because Reiki, it's an interior work. Reiki works in ways you don't realize until you, like for example, sometimes you have childhood childhood traumas, situations in childhood that brings you pain, that you felt fragile. Like even if you're a child and your parents are fighting at your home, which is natural, everyone. But this is not a perfect world. And but when you're a kid, that can bring emotions to you, feeling hopeless or feeling scared, and um, and you can bring kind of like those pains in different ways to your adult life, and you learn behaviors and you create these limitations in yourself, these blockages in yourself. Like for example, someone that sees their parents fighting all the time, of course they will have trouble in their adult life to want to be in a relationship, because they learn that relationships are complicated and people fight and the environment at home is not that great. So when they grow into their adult life, they don't want to but they don't relate with their pain when they were childhood. If they do an inner child healing, they connect with their child, with their conscious as an adult, and with their conscious of like being more connected with the love, the universal love, and in loving themselves. And because childhood is very connected with karma also. If someone doesn't want to do past life regressions, they should go to their childhood. It's all there. All the pains we came to heal, they are all there. The first time we get in touch with whatever we came to heal, it's in childhood. That's why we all have some trauma from childhood. It's not just because. And Reiki helped me realize it brings up again like the stuff that you put into the suitcase down there, and you don't deal with them, and they are in your energy, and you don't even remember that stuff is still in you. You think it's all solved, you think you moved on, and then Reiki brings that stuff up again. Suddenly you're remembering things you didn't remember. Suddenly I was crying for stuff I thought I was okay with it, and suddenly comes to my mind thoughts that I know I have to deal with those situations in a way that it's healing. And Reiki brings that stuff up and gives you the support to heal it, because you're putting the Reiki energy into that situation at the same time. So you're taking the density, the darkness that it's in you from that situation, you're transforming it in light with Reiki. Reiki does that work for you. And slowly, slowly, steady, you become a more balanced person, peaceful. I used to have my triggers. I still have my triggers, because as human beings, for more, unless you have a big enlightenment, like Eckhart Tolle had, or some gurus have, that suddenly a strike of light hits you, which I think it's very rare. Enlightenment, it's a process. We are all made to achieve enlightenment if we just do the work. And enlightenment is more, it's putting light into little things that are in our energy, hurts and blockages and stuff we don't want to deal with. And we just go to the cinema and distract ourselves, buying stuff, doing drugs, doing alcohol, or victimizing. It's an addiction. Complaining is an addiction. You just stay in that same situations that are not good for you, if you keep complaining, because you're just using the energy that you have to solve it to complain. So when you need to solve it, you don't have more energy anymore left, because you just used all of it complaining. So all this stuff Reiki gives you, brings up to conscious, and then gives you the support to heal it. and it's amazing. It's amazing. To me, it was a very, because I don't have any disease. Um, I'm kind of a physical healthy. Of course, anxiety is a disease, and I have anxiety. It helped me with my anxiety a lot. It helped me with my stress a lot, and it helped me. Those triggers, you always, all those triggers that you have, like those things, like when someone pushes your buttons, you need to know the buttons you have. When someone pushes those and the triggers, that's very connected also with karmic pain. That's why you react so violently, because it's not only that situation that it's creating that pain. You already bring that pain for a long time with you, and that's why it's so violent. That's why it's so powerful. Whenever we react in a more intense way than the situation itself, that's karma. Pay attention to those moments, because those are the moments that we came to heal. Those are the moments where you have to put light, where you have to put healing, where you have to connect with your limitations, connect and want to be better, want to not be nervous with people around you because they push your buttons, and blaming on the person that is making you nervous. She's making you nervous because you have something in you that it's creating that nervousness. You have some pain that the person is putting the finger on. So instead of saying, "Oh, they are bad for me," and putting the finger here, just realize you have a wound there. You have to connect with your wound, and you have to be responsible to healing that wound. It's not other people that it's doing you stuff. People are doing you stuff to just make you realize you have that in you, and that's being spiritual. Just make you less resentful, just make you more accepting, more observing of whatever the pains, and less a victim. And okay, so everything become like my teacher, she always says, when you're spiritual, everything, or it's a lesson. So every complicated situation you get into, it's a lesson that you have to learn. So you just observe, try to be the best, just connect with your limitation, ask to learn more, to be better at that thing, go study about that thing. And or it's a blessing, because when you clean your energy, and your energy gets better because you took all this density out of it, and you're vibrating in a higher energy level. You're vibrating in a more peaceful way. You're being kind to yourself and to others. You're more tolerant. You're compassionate. You want to believe that you are want to love people because you want to love them. You want to give, and not you want to receive love because you're a needy person needing love. You feel love inside yourself because you learn to love yourself. You naturally will attract good things for you. So the thing is, if you want abundance, the true abundance will never come unless we clean ourselves of this stuff we came to heal. And Reiki is one tool to heal those things. And the life starts changing, and you start like connecting naturally with who you came to be, and you just surrender to something higher, because you understand you don't have much. There's some things in your life that you're trying to control, and you don't get out of the same place because you have no control. You just need to surrender and to heal energetically your stuff and connect, so that your higher self, your better version that you want to be, if you aim to be a better version of yourself, naturally you will be a spiritual person. Even if you don't do anything else, you want to be a better version. You're sad because you lied, you screamed at someone and you didn't want to be, but don't feel guilty. That's the problem here. We tend to feel guilty. We tend to be not kind with ourselves. Instead, learn, okay, this is a thing I came to heal. I have this limitation. I have this pain in here. I'm going to be kind to myself. Okay, I have it. I'm a human being. I'm dual. I have good and bad. This is my shadow side. I want to put light in it. I don't want to be like this. And you just connect and ask, I want to be better than this. So teach me, universe. Um, and you ask energy to take off that blockages from you. Because if you don't, they will come. The cycles will come back to you over and over.
Yeah,
And yeah, Reiki is it's a tool in that way.
it's a very powerful thing, and I think the ability that we have to grow in compassion is something that should be cherished today. Um, not everybody's able to see that side of the coin, if you will, and we
Yeah,
need that.
because
We need
we
to push
mhm.
forward.
Yes, we do. We do need. It's our true nature. It's that feeling. Whenever we are not vibrating in compassion, we are not connected with our true nature because we are light. And whenever or all every time we choose light when we are confronted with the shadow side, we are enlightened. The shadow side will always be there, but we choose light instead. You can feel like doing something wrong, but if you connect with your light side and you prefer to be a better version of yourself and you believe you can do it, you ignore those instincts of doing something that you know it's going to be wrong, and you grow. You know you prefer to be like that different way. And whenever you do something that it's wrong, be compassionate with yourself. Say, okay, my level of consciousness is not there yet, but I want to be better. I've done this mistake, so I have something in me that I want to heal because I don't want to keep having this behavior. And you just seek whatever is making you have those behaviors.
Well, sadly, I think that's all the time we have for today. Is there any last words you'd like to leave us with, Teresa?
I would just like to say, be open-minded. Maybe think about what we've spoken here today. And even if you don't believe much, just go and try something. Try a meditation, go to a Reiki therapist or a Theta healing therapist or um, any kind of energetic healing. Try something if you're in a rough situation at this point, if you have some suffering in your life at this moment, and you don't want to be there, just see other options you have available, spiritual options, energetic options. Uh, if you have done all these things that didn't work until now, and you're still in pain, open up. I think that's the universe telling you open up. And if you're listening to this podcast with me and Nazar uh, at this moment, or in another platform, see that as the universe bringing you to this knowledge for you to open up for something, because the signals are always out there, and we always, if we listen to the whispers, life will be much lighter for everyone. And yeah, thanks for having me, Nazar, and I really enjoyed also conversation.
Beautiful. Yeah, I was glad to have you on today. If you guys want to check us out in our Discord, you can find our Discord invite on Instagram or Twitter or Google. You can definitely search us on Google. Um, we're also going to be doing a lot more recordings of live guided meditations as soon as we get more meditation teachers in here. Thank you guys for tuning in, and remember, communication cultivates clarity.